This week, DC Rebirth is really picking up steam, and is it leaving Marvel in the dust? Let's take a look. What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is Preview Picks, where I'm going to go over the books that are coming out this week and give you an idea what they're all about. I want to lead off with Image Comics' Renato Jones, The 1%, number 4, which is, the fourth issue in this book written by Carr Andrews, and I really enjoy it. It's a very visceral tale about money and power, and how only people with money and power can bring down that kind of corrupt system. And it's very heavily focused on the corrupt and the violence. It's a really enjoyable book for me, so I recommend that you pick it up. Then we go on to the Dark Horse imprint, where there's a new book coming out from Greg Pak called Kingsway West. This is about a Chinese gunslinger and mystical swords, and I like the way that Greg Pak writes the Hulk, so I'm interested to see what his take on other stuff is, because I'm not really familiar with his work outside of, World War Hulk, Planet Hulk, the new Totally Awesome Hulk book, those kind of things. So I'm interested to see where he takes that as a writer. Last, as far as independent titles, I've got Valiant's Generation Zero. And I don't really know much about it. Haven't really picked up any Valiant books. It's very tough for me to get a hold of them, but it looks like it's going to be interesting. It kind of throws back to when I was a kid, I guess. So I'm going to take a look for that on the shelves. Once we move on to more mainstream titles, we can talk about Marvel. So we could talk about Captain Marvel number 8. We could talk about New Avengers 15. We could talk about Steve Rogers' Captain America number 4. And we could probably even talk about Civil War II Ulysses number 1, the tie-in for Civil War II. But to be perfectly honest with you, I'm really kind of fed up with Civil War II. There's only a few books that I really want to pick up. And those books that I just mentioned aren't books that I'm reading. I don't know anything about what's going on with them. And it might be enjoyable for some people. They're coming out, so if you like them, this is your week. The only book that I'm really looking at real hard is going to be Venom Space Knight number 11, and that's because Venom Space Knight, Venom's actually going to be fighting Spider-Man, which is what Venom really was intended to do. So it's going to be a really good throwback to that point in time, and I really hope that it kind of delivers on that promise. So that's the one I'm going to be focusing the most on for Marvel. Otherwise, it's going to be an extremely light week. But we have to remember, this is a 5-Wednesday month, which means that comic book schedules get all funked up anyway. So I'm sure there's going to be a very Marvel-heavy week next week and a very light week from DC. It's just going to work out that way. Now that we're done with Marvel, we're going to dive deep into DC, and it's going to start off with Action Comics 962. So Doomsday is still wreaking havoc everywhere, and Superman's trying to protect Lois, and he's trying to protect, Jonathan. So so this is going to be a continuation of that story. Then we go to Batgirl number 2, which is, it's got really great art by Raphael Albuquerque, and he's doing the covers for this particular book. I'm a really big fan of his. I had a chance to meet him a couple weeks ago, so that was really nice. And overall, the book is very good. I like Batgirl, I like Barbara Gordon at large, and I think this is going to be more of the same, and I really dig that. Next, we're going to go to Blue Beetle Rebirth. So I'm not really up on Jaime Reyes, Blue Beetle kind of situations. I'm going to pick it up and get a feel, because the Rebirth titles, if anything, while they haven't been as strong as the main first issue title for any series, they've been a good way to introduce you to the character. At least that was the original intent. So I'm going to see where that one really leads me. Then we go to Deathstroke number 1, which is really me trying to give this book another chance, because I didn't really appreciate the Rebirth title too much. But Christopher Priest, he wrote a great Black Panther, good writer overall, so I want to see what he does with this kind of character. But this is just really the lead up for one of my favorite books that's currently out, and that is Detective Comics 939. So Detective Comics 939 is continuing and getting close to completion of this whole Bat Family, recruitment arc, and it really leads into the upcoming Monster Men tie-in, which is going to cross over with Batman, Nightwing, and Detective Comics. If I'm going to pick up 939, though, I'm kind of steering away from the regular covers, because I like Raphael Albuquerque, and he's doing all the variant covers for that particular book. So that's the one that I'm going to be picking up instead. Then we move on to Flash number 5, which is a continuation of this super speedster storyline. The introduction of Godspeed, the introduction of all the new speedster superheroes in the city. It's really odd to have so many people with similar powers to the Flash, but still understanding that the Flash is the better of them all. in certain instances. He has different abilities. He's bonded with the Speed Force, so that's kind of taking this on. So that's a very interesting take. Definitely something to look out for. Then we go to Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps, number 3. So this is your core space Green Lantern book. If you want to deal with Green Lantern off the Earth, this is where you're going to find it. And it's really Hal Jordan meeting up with the rest of the Corps that is kind of hidden off in some sort of zone and rebuilding that while he's basically taking on the Sinestro Corps, which has supplanted them as the police force of the universe. So that's really what you can expect in there. Then we go to Hellblazer number 1, which is Hellblazer Rebirth was a very fun kind of look at Hellblazer. I haven't read it in a long time, so I'm really excited to see where this kind of goes. It's very interesting, and I can't wait to see where Hellblazer number 1, which, like I said, Rebirth issues are, maybe they're a 6 out of 10, but the first issues tend to give you the best indication of where the story is going to go in the future because they're the beginning of an arc. So I'm really looking forward to Hellblazer number 1. Another number 1 that's coming out this week is Six Pack and Dog Welder number 1. I have no idea what to expect from this book. I don't know if I'm going to pick it up. It's just that I see a fat guy with a t-shirt that says Six Pack and a guy holding a dog, and he's ready to weld it to somebody. So, we'll go with that. Next, we have a Dan Abnett title in Titans number 2. So there are a few of these books that are coming out once a month, a few that are coming out every 2 weeks. So this is one of those once a month type titles. And Titans feels like it's going to be the book that is really going to tie into DC Rebirth. But then they threw this whole, abracadabra kind of twist at us regarding how Wally West and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, well, that's not how it's supposed to go. Hopefully it's a very interesting turn, and I'd like to see it have some potential as far as the story arc is concerned. So this is where I'm going to kind of keep going with that. But depending on how this kind of rolls out, it may or may not stay in my must-buy kind of category. Finally, we get to Wonder Woman number 5, and Wonder Woman number 5 is part of the way that Greg Rucka is telling the story. Like every even issue is a year 1 type story. Every odd issue is kind of a current day tale of Wonder Woman trying to battle and uncover her original identity, unravel these lies of her life. And this one, which is illustrated by Liam Sharp, is part of that, current day arc. And I really dig that. As far as like the covers and things, the cover on the book is great. But if I'm going to pick up any kind of cover, it's going to be the Frank Cho cover. Because Frank Cho has done a great job with Wonder Woman. It doesn't feel like overly sexualized. It feels powerful, and the art is great. And the thing is, if you've been in the know for the news, Frank Cho and Greg Rucka had a really big spat, so he's not going to be able to finish a lot of these variant covers, and Greg Rucka wasn't really pleased with how he was drawing Wonder Woman. That may or may not stir up a little bit of desire for those particular covers, but it's definitely something that I want to pick up. So, that's it for this week's episode of Preview Picks. If you like what you see, hit the like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.